The theme for this session is storytelling through digital. Every travel experience starts with a search. So I'm sure that almost each and everyone in this hall would have had experienced the search when it comes to going to whatever the destination that you want to be, whatever this destination that you want to go. So my first question to the experts who take us to these destinations even before we start the journey is, say for example, when you wanted to come to Maldives, how did you start your search? And what did you find about Maldives? And I would also like to know, now that you are here, what difference does it make? Compare your search with what you experience here. So the floor is yours. Any one of you can just start off.
Well, I start with Google.
Okay.
And I Googled the Maldives, and I found it. The questions were, is it in India? How many islands are there in the Maldives? And then how expensive is it? So that kind of gives me an idea of what kind of questions people want to know about the Maldives.
I always like to try and find out what I can do in a place.
Yeah.
So a bit of background information about activities, about the heritage, about the culture. What can I go and see? What can I actually get involved in? I knew about the diving, but people have been talking about surfing, and that's a real surprise to me because I didn't think that this was a surfing destination. So that's great to hear, but I only found about that here, not online.
Anyone else?
I think what made an impact on me, I found on Google kind of what I was thinking anyway, the location and where it is located, et cetera. But what I didn't find on Google that I really loved seeing is, I mentioned it when I spoke earlier, the culture is so rich and there's so much of it, and it's very foreign and exotic to somebody from North America who really only knew it in one capacity. To realize it had all of these different layers of culture and history and flavor, that was a really nice surprise.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say that when I Google an information about a particular country, most probably I already decided by the time that I want to go there, and I just want to double check if that's a correct choice. So probably what we were talking about in the panel one, about inspiration, about a particular country, I get it more from social media. So scrolling my Facebook feed, my Instagram, I get to know about the country that maybe I didn't think about earlier, and I'm thinking, oh, these pretty pictures about Maldives, maybe I want to go there. And so when I actually Google information about the country, I am more practical. So I want to know how long can I, how long time is it enough to see the country at full, how expensive will it be, and so on and so forth. So it's more practical for me.
So as travel writers, did you necessarily find what you were looking for over the search engines, or do you think that Maldives as a destination when it comes to marketing Maldives, do we need to do more?
I think it's great to be on the ground where we can actually meet people and talk about the things that interest us and ask direct questions, because of course you market it and that's great, but I think it's actually when you're on the ground you're inspired to ask more questions and to then pinpoint the answers and then hopefully represent that to your audience.
Mm-hmm. It's the only way you're going to find a story is when you meet people. I mean, you can write about luxury resorts, but you got to meet somebody that's saved their savings to come here, or meet somebody that has some kind of angle that makes it interesting for you to write about.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the reputation is so well ensconced. It is so iconic that the field to bring in another angle is wide open here. And there's a lot of angles to choose from that we're barely scratching the surface of.
Dr. Salih, would you like to speak about the current trends and how should the various market segments pitch when it comes to promoting Maldives as a destination? What are the preferred mediums of spreading the information?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, us, Modis, began in 1972. We're still a young destination. We still got a lot to learn. If you look at social media today, and if you search for motives, what you get is, as they mentioned, very basic ideas. If you look at the Facebook and search for the motive in brands or hotels, it's only one profile. Facebook works when you develop it, when you analyze it, when you research it, when you respond it. On Facebook, for example, we all have, if you look at the web today, there are 500 million Facebook users. But if you look at the more event sites, if you look at the Bounders, for example, or the resort, they might have a profile, but with Facebook, it's like word of mouth today. People are interacting, people are talking today. So just for one aspect of the mediums which you just highlighted, one is I'm looking at only Facebook today. So to develop Facebook and to get on with that, you need to have your wall, your informations, your videos, you have notes. It's like your second website. But our people, our industry need to learn more and develop their Facebook so that it will be more interactive. You got to respond to it. Some of my colleagues, I work in the Ministry of Tourism, sorry, I didn't mention that before. They tell me that, look, I don't want to respond to any of negative comments on my Facebook. I just delete it. Which is not right. You got to respond it, you got to address it, and be positive on it, and take it in a positive manner, and look at how you can improve on those aspects. So I'm just mentioning only one aspect of it, is the Facebook only. Instagram, we heard a lot about that. We brought in Instagrammers to Modi some time back, and then we did work with them. There's one country where they invited a Russian, a Chinese, and Italian. They invite them to come to the country, and then they Instagram what they have seen throughout their 7-day stay. So there are things we could learn, but we're still trying to develop on these aspects. Yes, we are on web. The web is evolving so dramatically. It's like a fashion industry. If you look at it today, fashion and tourism is very much similar. And the technology is adding more to that. I just want to share one video with you. Just have a look at that. This was CEO of Burberry has to say today. She was back then 5 years ago. Can you play the video, please? Just to illustrate what you just highlighted.
The faster we move forward, it becomes even more critical to look back and never forget who we are and never forget where we came from and what made this brand such a great global luxury brand today. I run the company with Christopher Bailey, our Chief Creative Officer. We had a vision, and the vision was to be the first company who was fully digital end-to-end. We are partnering with Salesforce to now take that vision and build this social enterprise. The experience would be that a customer would have total access to Burberry across any device, anywhere, and they would get exactly the same feeling of the brand, feeling of the culture, regardless of where, when, how they were accessing the brand. Everyone now can come into Burberry World and understand the journey and mission that Burberry is on.
Thank you.
And to any CEO who's skeptical at all, you have to. You have to create a social enterprise today. You have to be totally connected with everyone who touches your brand. If you don't do that, I don't know what your business model is in 5 years.
Thank you. This was 5 years ago.
Wow.
That was 5 years ago. And we're here today. What she said is very critical. You always look back where you came from, what your brand is all about. And you got to touch each and every one who touches your brand, connect them. Across what? All the platforms.
All social media platforms.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salih. May I ask the travel writers, so how do you plan to speak about your experience this time? And could you also shed some light on how you have changed the way you present your stories? Take a look at the past 5 years, because the consumer market is basically changing. It's an evolutionary, it's a dynamic area. So my question is, how have you changed the way you tell your story? And what story are we expecting from you by the time you reach your destination,
For
next destination? Yeah.
my story, what I'm really looking forward to expressing is, as I said, the wealth of culture and history that exists here. People of all of the destinations I have the privilege of visiting, there are very few that are as mysterious to the North American market as the Maldives are. I think people have an idea, certainly known for certain things, but the nuances of this country and this atoll of islands is very esoteric, and I think there's a lot to be said for demystifying it. I also think in talking about not is that on? Okay. Not forgetting where it was built, that's the backbone of this destination. So I think it's going to be really important to introduce the accessibility of something that was at one time reserved for a privileged few. What you've done is you've opened it to levels of that idea and of that legend and history without dismissing the legend and history, and that's going to be important with generational travelers. As I said, they're looking for something different, not necessarily so different that they're willing to compromise on their creature comforts, but the experiences, the adventures, the interest, the breaking the mold, the not vacationing the way their parents vacationed or their grandparents vacationed. This destination is ideal for that because there is so much to choose from, and quite a bit of it people had no idea existed.
I think social media is fantastic because it really means we can get a message out right away. Obviously, the people who have embraced it know that. But when I look at how I've changed my work from a few years ago, I used to make a lot of notes, take a lot of photographs, and they would be then published months later. That was the life cycle of the story. And right now, I can get my phone out of my pocket and reach people. I can hopefully inspire them right away. Mm-hmm. And then I can get stories that I want to tell out on my blog without having to go through the gatekeeper of an editor, because the editor, whoever that might be, might say, hey, we don't like that idea, but I might think it's a great one because I've seen it and I've been there. The great thing about social media is I can reach out and get everybody on board without that gatekeeper. At the same time, though, I don't think we should dismiss traditional media because that's still very powerful. I was talking to a guidebook editor back in the UK last week. The guidebook market is actually growing, and a lot of people are surprised by that. And they're starting to integrate electronic media with the traditional guidebooks so that updates are then put online, and before people come away, they can download the updates so that, and refer to that when they're there. So I think it's really nice that we're seeing the coming together of traditional and
you can have a
electronic
guidebook,
media.
and then you can have an app on your phone that goes along with it. It might have walking city tours or different things that you can do. When you're at home researching, it's kind of nice to have a book and look through photos. But when you're on the ground, you got to have GPS and kind of know where you are and how to get around. So
The Moleskine notebook people have introduced an app where they're publishing people's travel notes. They're still encouraging them, obviously, to write in the notebook. That's their bread and butter. But then they're digitizing that content and pairing it with images and putting it on their social media, which I thought was brilliant.
That would scare me, the things I know down.
But I think too, it's really marrying the old and the new. There's a place for both, and whether there are still people I know younger than me who like to write things down. I don't write anything down anymore, but by whatever means necessary to create the experience for you, whatever that experience looks like, and to have a destination that offers enough to satisfy a broader scope. It's a winning combination.
I think it's really interesting. Sorry,
Yeah, sure.
I think it's really interesting as well because it's travel writers and bloggers. You know, we've got to listen to the audience, but it's that listening to the destination. What can you offer? If destinations can listen to us as well about what we expect, I think working together, cooperating together, we can build richer stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I wanted to say on they're talking about mixing the old and the new. As a filmmaker, so I'm a filmmaker and a TV host, and I'm heavily influenced by the media. That's the whole reason. I've gone to so many destinations, because I saw a movie, like for instance in 2000, I saw The Beach, and I was like immediately in love with Thailand, and I went there, and I remember at the time in 2000, not a lot of my peers really even talked about Thailand, and now 17 years later, Thailand is a hugely popular destination because of a Hollywood movie, The Beach. And that's why I got into filmmaking and photography, because I know how inspiring and influential the visual media is. And when I was telling people that I was going to the Maldives just in the last couple weeks, and just so everyone knows, I live in Colorado in the U.S. and when I was telling people in the U.S. that I was going to Maldives, most people did not even know where it was, especially my family. They were like, is that near Tahiti? Like, no one really talks about Maldives. So, when they're talking about, the old media still being key, I think even though we have social media today and social media is so important, having films, especially Hollywood blockbusters, film tear would probably be a huge thing. And I don't know how the tax incentives are for filming here, but I'd love to know that. Yeah. But all you need is have one Hollywood blockbuster movie here, and everyone's going to want to go to the Maldives. And after coming here, I might be one to actually make that film for you. Okay. So anyways, I've been really inspired by my experience here so far, and I've only been here for 2 days, so I can't really say too much so far because I have so many more days left here. But this is like the best time of my life right now, so I'm loving it.
True.
I was at an event that had, it wasn't a media event, it was a charity event, but there were a lot of my readers, that niche was there. And I'm chatting with somebody about what I did and where I go, and she says, oh, that's you, meaning, the entire industry is now on my lap. She goes, what you basically do is run recon for me. She says, I'm going to wait until I read about something to decide if I'm going to take it a step further. And I thought that was such a clever way to describe it, because it is. We're running recon. We're taking the chance and the risk and the thought process of not being afraid to get it wrong away from these travelers and giving them a little guidance and some inspiration to go off that path as well. But we forget, when we all travel so much, I think, get jaded in so much as we forget how intimidating travel can be, especially when I tell people I'm going to China for, oh my gosh, how long are you going? I think 3 or 4 days. And they go, what? Well, yeah, because that's the window I had, and I'll sleep on the plane. You make it work. This is a lifestyle for people who work and travel that the rest of the world thinks we're out of our minds. They're equal parts envious and horrified by what we do. So we really do run recon, whether it be for film or, it just, every piece of that information, it adds up, a drip at a time, and sooner or later that jug is full and it's going to spill over.
I think what everybody said here is absolutely true, especially about the videos. I have been recently to Jordan. Everybody knows about the world wonders. The Petra one is one of the world wonders, and I asked my guide, how did it even become a world wonder? Because it's not a committee of judges who decided, it's people who were voting for that. And he said, well, after the Indiana Jones movie, everybody started to recognize that, because nobody even knew about it, the existence of Treasury before. And now, because they're one of the 7 new world wonders in the world, they have this immense amount of tourism coming there.
That's amazing.
So that's one of the great ways of increasing tourism in your country. And also what Stuart said about how it changed in the last 5 years, actually even less, like 3 years, 2 years. Now we are so way faster. We have to broadcast what's happening right in front of you right away. And if the moment is gone, it's gone. Nobody will care about my Maldives experience in 2 weeks because they're not interested. It's gone. And yeah, one more thing about what I noticed where not the trend, but my content at least was heading, how it changed in 3 years that I'm blogging. At first I was trying to inspire people, just give them a broad understanding of the country, but that was covered before everywhere on all social medias and blogs and whatever. So what I'm trying to do now and what brings more value to my readers, as far as I understand, it's more in-depth content. So something that they maybe wouldn't find before in other medias. Something very detailed and specific, I don't know, a picture of a ticket booth that says the price of a museum or something like this. So information that I would dig from every places all over the city, combining them at one, so something that they couldn't find before anywhere in the internet.
So as you know, nowadays we are targeting the millennials because this is the group of people within the population who's going to change the way the travel industries around the world would evolve in time. So I was just wondering, when it comes to targeting information, when it comes to even filmmaking, how do you try to target these so-called millennials, and what sort of information are they out there looking for? Are they looking for information which is displayed in the form of publications, blogs, videos, Instagram, photographs, as well as videos? Could you please share with us how you have pitched your platform to target millennials? Perhaps from that, our audience could take back some experience.
Can I? Millennials are very different. They're unique creatures, if you can call them. Their behavior is different. The wants and needs are unimaginable. We used to work to earn a living. They say, you have to pay me to work. It's a difference, simple as that. Now, when you look at what they're doing in terms of traveling, but they don't look TripAdvisor. They look for discrete content. They want to be able to relate to that. They want to have content whereby they can feel it. It's more than just reviews and that. They're very fast. They move very quickly. To add, we'll be happy to have a film with you in the Maldives. You have our yes for that, and also highlighted about the lack of information in US platforms. I think that's an area we need to look at. With regard to films today, the editions are made in your room, in the sitting room. What you watch on TV could be the deciding factor for your travel. For example, recently, Ahmed did a survey. What they found was so many people were booking for Caribbean, and they were asking why. Why? Why was that? Why did everybody flock to Jamaica or the Caribbean? Because, the actors in Sex and the City. Do you know them? Sex and the City? Mm-hmm. You know them? Yeah. They went for a holiday in the Caribbean. So what you watch in your sitting room could be the deciding factor for future travel. He mentioned about the beach. New Zealand, they did a lot of film tourism targeting the Indian market. A lot of movies played in South Island, and Indians start traveling to New Zealand. Hopefully, with our Star Wars episode we done in the country, we'll attract certain travelers too. So the millennials, they're different. You've got to be they're changing rapidly. overnight they change their behaviors. So they want wearables. You look at them today, in the next cruise by Prince Line, you can open your room with your wearable. You have appended on your hand. And you can book, you can order your coffee, your drinks through this. And they'll be wearing these gadgets. And they won't see the holidays before they come and land in the Maldives. How do they see it? How do the millennials see these things before they travel? How?
The technology, but you
Exactly.
know what? I am old enough to remember when Club Med used to have beads.
Yes, they did.
And I remember the Belmonts and the Four Seasons that came before the Club Med said, this is never gonna work. Every generation of traveler is saying the same thing, and they're all wrong, because the beads did work.
Yep.
And there were a luxury group of hotels in Mexico and the Caribbean who did the demo on the bracelet with a group of luxury travelers to kind of beta it and get the bugs out of it. How many people said, a chat room? What's a chat room? I mean, these are things that were all at one point unimaginable, but they've become part of our culture. The information is not limited to those millennials, but the way millennials are getting their information is limited to that platform, if that makes sense. All of the generations are now using the internet in addition to other things or exclusively, but everyone's using it, so it stands to reason.
The point I was trying to make was that virtual reality. You can wear the gadgets today, it's available, and you can holiday in the Maldives today, back in the USA. And you
Since
can
we
do
are
it.
running out of time, I would like to request JJ to
Yeah.
shed some light on
360 video
millennials.
is becoming huge, and being in such a beautiful country like this, it's going to be easy to sell. And actually, a lot of my followers don't necessarily get to do the traveling for themselves, because some of them are in a health situation where they, for health, physical reasons, can't travel, so they need to live vicariously through media. And that's why these, in the future, now, I guess, with 360 video, and people will be able to experience more locations that they wouldn't be able to go to. And let's just say that you wanted to get a feel for a place that you're thinking about going. Well, being able to do 360 would allow you to preview the spot that you're going to. And then imagine when we're going to start having the smelling, when we can actually smell what we see in the theaters and things like that. That's going to really change things. But what you're asking with the whole millennials and how to kind of tailor to that audience, well, I mean, I know as an older millennial that I have such a short attention span. And you have to have everything in such quick segments now. And so with social media, we have 15 seconds on Instagram stories, 12 seconds, I think, on Snapchat. You have to, I remember when I was doing YouTube videos and I was doing them for about 2 minutes, and then when Insta Stories was coming out, I had to then figure out how to convey the same information that I was doing in 2 minutes into 15 seconds, and that's a whole other level of filmmaking. It's just and who knows what the next level is going to be, but you're constantly trying to create these segments. And Insta Stories has only been out for a year now. I can't even believe that it's only been 1 year, because I can't see without it. My whole life is just Insta Stories now. But get ready for the Z generation.
Yeah.
They don't know what it was like not having cell phones. And that's the next generation comment.
I think except the short attention span, what you're saying, as one more millennial, I can say that we are more interested about authentic experience. So if there was something that was covered before by our parents, our generations, like, I don't know, our grandparents, maybe we're not that interested anymore in this, like, a discover path. So we're trying to see other ways of re-exploring the same destination, but making it from a completely other angle so that, first of all, you can post those pictures on Instagram and be super cool. And second, yeah, it's just another way of exploring the same destination. And that's what I find very exciting, for example.
And as Liz was saying earlier on the first panel about being yourself and authenticity, vulnerability, and things like that, I've kind of learned. I'm learning this with just my own media, that the more I become comfortable with myself and more vulnerable with sharing myself, the more my followers really latch on. And so that whole element of like, people these days don't really like the whole produce and setup. That's why you have like reality stars like Kylie Jenner, and people are obsessed with her because she's showcasing her intimate details of her life, and people want to see the raw of what's going on with these celebrities. They don't want to see the actual produced stuff. They want to feel like they're best friends with these people, and they're living their lives with them. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as the trend with millennials today, is you have to make content that's literally like they're on this trip with us right now, seeing like the raw moments, the bad, the good, the ugly, everything. They want to see it all.
I think, too, it's the packaging. Everybody talks about the diving here. It's spectacular. Okay, inarguable. So basically what you have is marine safari, and all of a sudden people go, oh, well, you say the word safari. If I use the word safari, there's more hits on an article, period. I could go to Africa once a month for the rest of my life, and people are going to read these stories, because every time I go, there's more going on. There's, another group, another animal, another something. So just taking it to that next level of what it's being called. It's always been there.
How it's being packaged.
But now if it's packaged, and also then you get the people who don't dive or who don't snorkel, but who want to see it. I went on the semi-submerged submarine. That was a marine safari. That's a thing, quote unquote. That is a thing, and that's a thing that people may not have connected to this destination, that I think is huge when you're talking about something as unique as these islands. So it's a rose by any other name.
I got a question. It's more of a thought that's running through my mind, actually, because the more and more we live in a digital world, is that what drives our desire for authenticity when we're on the road? So like we live in this electronic bubble, but then when people are on vacation, is that what makes us want to really be able to reach out and talk to people and see how they cook their food, see what their traditions are, see
Behind
and
the curtain,
feel it and smell it? Because normally we're just like, we're there and not even looking out the window, always playing with the phone when we're traveling.
That's a really valid point. I think that's an amazing option, because it's true. And I know when I travel, I rarely travel for me, not for work. And when I do, I said, I can't remember the last time I ate a meal without taking a picture of it first, So there's something really refreshing about just putting it down, but that's what got you there to begin with. So it seems so polar opposite, but I think they're very closely connected.
Like,
That's really
spectrum,
interesting.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight, and I'm sure that the audience were able to put together quite a number of good points, useful points from the discussions we just had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.